Hello everyone and welcome back to day 12 of our F125 Hotlap and Setup series. Yes, today we're back here for the British Grand Prix at the iconic Silverstone circuit, the home of Formula 1. Of course, the very first F1 race was hosted here back in 1950, and over the years this circuit has changed quite a lot, but still the magic is maintained. It's high speed, it's high commitment, it is also high downforce. It's actually now one of the easier tracks, I think, on the F1 calendar. There aren't that many big braking zones, there aren't that many corners, especially in these ground effect cars that are particularly challenging, mainly because obviously now a lot of corners that were challenging are now easy flat out inside F125, as has been the case over the last couple of F1 games as well. But of course, if you're new, this is the series where I show you guys a race setup inside F125, talk you through what you want to be aiming for, what you want to be looking for around the circuit, and then we finish off with a hot lap. Of course, as always, timestamps will be linked down in the description below if you just want to head to a certain part of the video. A massive thank you to everybody for their continued support on this series. Please do make sure you hit that sub button if it's helping you out. Leave a like on the video as well, because it really does help with the algorithm. But yeah, without further ado then, let's head into our track guide. Well, making our way then out of the final corner here from Silverstone. You want to get your foot to the floor as early as you possibly can. Keep the car over on the left-hand side as we make our way up in towards turn 1. 7th gear on the way in. You can go up to 8th if you're in the slipstream of the car in front. Turn in just after the 50-meter board, but you are going to be completely flat out through these first couple of corners. I like to leave the car in 7th gear just because it gives you a little bit of extra RPM, a little bit of extra speed, but make sure you hug the left-hand side as you make your way out of turn 2 and in towards the loop. Your braking reference points, you can brake at the 100. I like to brake though just at the start of the curbing, a little bit later. Try to keep the car in a straight line for as long as you possibly can, and then slowly bring the car in 2nd gear there. Be really, really careful to avoid that big red sausage curb on the inside, otherwise it's just going to upset the rear of the car and you're probably going to spin out. Try not to run too wide either through the first part of this loop there, because you want to get the car as far back over to the right hand side as you possibly can, leave it in 2nd gear and really try to get a late apex through the exit of the corner there. Avoid the inside curb, get on the throttle as early as you can, up through 3rd and 4th gear as you try and get the power down off of these next couple of corners. Then attack the curbing as we head out onto the Wellington Straight, and then you bring the car over to the right hand side once more. Be a little bit careful, there is still a bump under the bridge here, so I like to bring the car just, you know, half a car length away from the white line there and then bring it back over. And then as we make our way down in towards Luffield, you want to be braking just as you go past the 50-meter board. From 8th gear, you want to slowly bring the car down into 4th and then try to really hold a nice steady line. Again, avoid those red sausage curbs on the inside and then try to bring the car to the middle of the road. Down into 3rd gear as we head through Luffield then, you want to try and make sure you go for quite a late apex here, but get on the throttle as early as you possibly can, because you will carry that speed up the old start-finish straight and all the way through the old turn 1, right the way through in towards Maggots and Beckett's. Foot to the floor once more, of course. Again, up here in qualifying trim, I like to leave it in 7th gear. You can use 8th if you're in a slipstream once more, but it will affect the rotation through the old turn 1. Like I said, completely wide open, foot to the floor, turn the car in just after the 50-meter board. Be careful that you don't run wide on the exit, otherwise you will pick up a warning. Sometimes, if the car's heavy with fuel, you might need to blend the throttle slightly, but then we make our way up in towards my favourite corners of the circuit. Then Maggots and Beckett's, completely flat through the first one. They get the car nicely over the curbing, completely flat through the second one. Again, get the car onto those sausage curbs on the inside line. In qualifying trim, completely flat through this one, but you want to go down 1 gear in race trim. Keep the car over on the left, bring it down 1 more, and then try to get your foot on the throttle just as you go past that final sausage curb on the exit as well. Carry the speed into the 2nd DRS zone of the lap, allow the car to drift slowly over to the right hand side to just build up the most speed you possibly can, and then slowly bring the car back over to the left. You want to get a nice straight line braking approach ready for these final few corners, braking just as you get to the 50-meter board, or again the start of the curbing. From 8th gear down in towards 6th, 5th if you're in race trim again if you're struggling for front end rotation. Bring the car out nice and wide on the exit there. Of course, the circuit slowly arcs back over to the left hand side, and then these final corners are easily the most difficult on the lap. The 100-meter board, again, you want to be braking just there. Again, I like to use the curb, but I brake just before it because it's really, really easy to lock up. There's a few bumps as you make your way into these final corners, so just be really, really careful as you try to slow the car down. All the way into second gear through this first part of the chicane, I like to compromise the first part to get a run through the second, short shift up to third on the exit, be really, really careful again of that sausage curb on the inside line, and then it's so awkward trying to get the throttle down off of the final corner. I like to go up to fourth a little bit early and then bury my foot through the floor. Again, final corner, be careful of the curb on the inside. I just avoid it at all costs because it is absolutely lethal there. And there we go then. That is a lap of the Silverstone circuit. Like I said, there isn't actually that much to it inside F1 25. It's one of the quickest tracks on the Formula 1 calendar nowadays, and especially with a good setup, a lot of the corners are flat out. You do have to manage the tyres a little bit as you go into a race, but of course we will talk about all of that when we get back into the pit lane there. But yeah, this place, again, a bit like Austria, easy to learn, difficult to master. To really kind of find those last few tenths of a second, you have got to be flinging the car in to pretty much every single corner around this venue. But yeah, let's head back to the garage and we'll talk through the setup. Well, taking a look then at our leaderboard times, as you can see, we're about 1.5 seconds away, which is fairly standard for me inside this game. Of course, all of these guys running qualifying trim. We're obviously using race trim inside the game, so it will make us probably close to half a second to a second a lap slower. And I'm obviously not an F1 Esports driver. Those guys are just much, much quicker than myself there. Taking a look, though, as we head into the setup, 25-21 wing. We all know this place is high speed, but you need to obviously have the downforce through the corners. If you're feeling very brave, you can bring this down to about 18-22. You're going to be a missile in a straight line, but it is going to make managing the tyres a little bit more difficult. 85-25 on the diff. Again, it's fairly standard for F1 25. It allows you to rotate the car, especially through the exit of Luffield and the loop, and obviously the final corner as well. But you can have a very, very unlocked diff off throttle, because the only really tricky braking zone, I would argue, really tricky, is the final corner, or the final braking zone, I should say, of the lap there. Pretty much minimum front and rear camber, and obviously front and rear toe as well. That seems to just be what works for me on this game. It allows you to look after the tyres a little bit better than complete minimums on all of the settings as well. Suspension-wise, 39.9 for the front and rear suspension there. 11.19 though for the anti-roll bars. Again, where this circuit, you know, it is quite bumpy. You have got to be a little bit careful, so you just want a car that maintains kind of quite a stable platform on the brakes. 2250 ride height. I've seen a lot of people running lower here, but I just found it's slightly more forgiving. It does give you a little bit of wiggle room, especially if you get kind of too close to the curbs or attack the curb the wrong way, but also not compromising you too much when it comes to straight line speed. 54-98 brake bias, again, just use what works for you inside the game. And then last but not least, 28.5 front pressures, 23.3 rear pressures here. It just allows you, again, to look after the tyres a little bit more and should mean that a one-stop is going to be viable. 12 laps on the mediums, 14 laps on a set of hards. This place isn't too bad for tyres. It won't chew them up quite in the same way that F1 24 did, which is actually quite rare inside F1 25. But you've got to be so careful. If you start to overheat the rubber, you're never going to get it back. It's always just going to be very, very warm. But a two-stop just isn't possible here because the pit lane is so long and so slow. So just be careful with it. You've got to make sure that you are able to do a one-stop around this circuit. But yeah, hopefully this setup helps you out. If it does, like I said in the intro, please do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed. We're almost halfway through this setup series. I know I'm going to get asked by you guys. Yes, I will be doing the reverse tracks as well, but they will come at the end of this series as well there. But like I said, hopefully this helps. If it does, drop a sub, and we'll be back tomorrow ready for the longest track in the Formula 1 calendar. We'll be back for the Belgian Grand Prix, but for now, I'll leave you guys with a hot lap.